There's a moment that happens in midlife. It's visceral. A moment where you start to see things you didn't see before. Not because they weren't there, but because you weren't ready to see them yet. And once you do, you can't unsee them. Welcome back to Most of Myself. I'm Michelle Madrid, and I am so glad that you're here with me. This is a space for women in midlife, a space where we tell the truth, not the polished version, not the, oh, everything's fine version, but the real one. The one that lives underneath the roles we've been playing for most of our lives. Because here's what I know for sure. Something begins to happen when you start doing this work, when you start truly listening to yourself, when you stop overriding what you feel, and when you begin to come back to yourself. You change. Not dramatically overnight, but subtly, powerfully, irreversibly. And when you change, your relationships feel it. And that's what I want to hone in on with you during this episode. When you change, your relationships feel it, especially the closest ones, especially your marriage, your partnership, the person who has known you in a certain way for a very long time. Because here's the truth. If your relationship feels off in this season, it doesn't automatically mean something is broken. It may mean something is shifting. You're changing, you're growing, you're redefining, and that can create friction with people who are used to an older version of you. Put it another way, relationships don't struggle because you're doing something wrong. They struggle because you're doing something different. So what does this look like? Well, you start saying things you didn't say before. You stop saying yes when you mean no. You need more space or more honesty or more depth. And you begin to notice patterns that have been on a repeat. Maybe patterns where you've overgiven, overadapted, overfunctioned. And suddenly what once felt normal starts to feel misaligned. And I hear this all of the time from the women who reach out to me. Women who have been in relationships for decades, who say things like, I've been married for 30 years, and I've been the support system for everyone. I've been the one holding it all together. And now that I want something for myself, now that I'm speaking up, now that I'm asking for more, my partner looks at me like I'm crazy. Or this, I'm trying to explain how I'm growing, how I'm changing. I'm trying to put words to what I need. And my partner doesn't hear me. And the more I try to explain, the more alone I feel. And then there's the quieter one, the one that doesn't always get said out loud. I don't know if I'm losing love for my partner or if I'm just finally seeing myself. And that's the one that catches in the throat because it's terrifying to sit inside that question and not have an immediate answer. Because for so long, your role in the relationship was clear. You were the steady one, the accommodating one, the one who kept things moving, the one who made it work, even if making it work meant you were quietly disappearing inside of your own life. And now you're not disappearing anymore. And that changes the entire dynamic. And this is where I have found the fear comes in. Because the immediate thought is, am I falling out of love? Am I falling out of love? But what if it's not that you're loving your partner less? What if, for the first time, you're finally loving yourself deeply and completely? And that changes everything. Changes everything. Because when you start loving yourself, you start telling the truth. And when you start telling the truth, everything that was built on you not telling the truth gets shaken. It gets shaken up. Your partner may not have changed, but the version of you they've been relating to has. You were easier to love when you were easier to manage. And that's not blame. That's awareness. And awareness is power. Because look, you participated in that dynamic too, no judgment. But you learned how to be agreeable, accommodating, self-sacrificing. And you did those things in order to feel safe, to feel loved, chosen. And I know this in my own life. I do. Because for a long time, I was the one who stayed. I was the rock. I was the dependable one, the one who held it all together, the one who held the fort down. And I didn't make space to take trips on my own. I didn't create that kind of space that was just for me. I told myself, it's okay. I don't really need that. It's just not the right time. And to me, in my own head, it sounded responsible. It sounded loving. It even sounded selfless. But if I'm honest, it was also a quiet form of self-abandonment. Because there were parts of me that wanted more. I was hungry for more. More space, more aliveness, more me. And then a couple of winters ago or so, I did something different. I actually got on a plane by myself. And I flew back to the United Kingdom, my birth country, England. And it was over my birthday. And let me just expand on that a little bit more. If you know, I'm an international adoptee, and I was born in the United Kingdom, in England, and adopted by Americans. And over the years, I have been back to my country of birth countless times. I go as often as I can. I love it there. But I'd never been back to England during the month of January, my birth month, since I was a child. So this was the first time I was going back to England in January, my birth month, since I was a little girl. And I didn't go for anyone else. I truly went for me. And something happened there. I slowed down. I walked streets in London that felt familiar and new all at once. I spent time with girlfriends who live in London, and another friend who flew in and surprised me from Germany. I spent time with them, quality girl time. I followed what I wanted to do, moment by moment by moment. And I felt it, that feeling. I came alive. not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a quiet, undeniable way that said, "This is you. This is you." And in that moment, I knew something had shifted, not just in me, but in how I was willing to live my life. I knew I would never again clip my own wings for the belief that loving anyone meant abandoning myself. And when I came home, I was different. It was different, not in a way that broke my life, but in a way that made it impossible to go back to who I had been. And that's the space so many women find themselves in. So this is where I just want to slow down for a moment. Because when something shifts inside of you, especially in your relationship, the instinct is often to react, to have the big conversation, to explain everything all at once, to either push harder or pull away completely. But this is where I suggest we do something different. We don't start with the relationship. We start with you. And in the work that I do, in the way that I coach, in the way that I write, in the way that I speak and share my message, it's always about starting with you. Because if you're here right now with me, you likely feel it. You feel frustration, resentment, maybe disconnection, guilt, that quiet knowing that something isn't working anymore. And most of us have been trained to override that, just to bulldoze right over it, and to tell ourselves, well, it's actually not that bad. Or I should just be grateful. Or I don't want to rock the boat. But that ache that you feel, it's information. That ache holds a whole lot of information. It's a messenger if we're willing to listen to it. And underneath that ache always is a need that hasn't been named. Under every ache is an unmet need. So instead of asking, what do I say to my partner? How do I fix this? Pause here and ask yourself, what do I actually need right now? What do I actually need right now? Maybe it's to be heard, to be met, to not carry this alone, to be honest, to have space. And for many women, honestly, this is the first time they've ever said that out loud. And then we don't change everything. We don't change everything all at once. We take one small, honest, loving step. Not to control the outcome, but to honor your truth. To honor your truth. And that might sound like, I've been feeling disconnected, and I want to start being more honest about that. Or I've just been carrying a lot on my own, and I don't want to do that anymore. Or even, I don't have all the words yet, but something something in me is shifting. And I'd really like to share that with you. Not perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just let it be real. Let it be real. Because here's the key truth. This is the shift. You are no longer relating from performance. You are relating from truth. And I want to be clear. That doesn't guarantee how the other person responds. It doesn't guarantee how they are going to respond. But it guarantees this, and I promise you this. You are no longer abandoning yourself inside of that relationship. You're no longer abandoning yourself. And there's power there. And this brings me back to that moment in the United Kingdom. When I got on that plane, I didn't know exactly what it would change. I didn't. I just knew I couldn't keep choosing everyone else at the expense of myself. I couldn't do that anymore. And what I found there wasn't a new life. What I found there was me. I found me. A version of me that had been waiting for me to choose her. And when I came home, I didn't burn everything down. I didn't make big dramatic declarations. But I was different in the way I listened to myself, in the way I spoke, in what I was no longer willing to ignore. And that difference rippled into everything, including my relationships. Not because I forced change, but because I stopped disappearing. So if you're in this space right now where something inside of you is shifting and your relationship feels it, don't start with fear. Don't start with conclusions. Don't start with ultimatums. Start here. Feel the ache. Name the need. Take one small step. And maybe that step is just telling yourself the truth. The truth. Not by changing everything at once, but by finally choosing not to leave yourself behind.